ఈ సెకండ్ సెషన్ కొంచెం నేమ్స్ కొంచెం పెద్దగా ఉంటాయి, కొంచెం టైం కూడా ఎక్కువ తీసుకుంటుంది, కొంచెం కాన్సన్ట్రేట్గా చేసుకోవాలి అంతే. తొమ్మిది అయింది కదా. మాస్టర్ బ్లెస్సింగ్స్. మాస్టర్ నమస్కారం. మాస్టర్ సివివి నమస్కారం. ఎం కోర్స్ కంటిన్యూషన్ 1000 one name. Please master, this is no roach lichem kempil soul. 6 veris rose riseri sons. Niroshi Reeth but Sheris Kalsal Vreru. Howl very great maidens of but Mahaparanirvanic Lynch. Stand course Mel sight eye. Root how late, how hinolia mind great Evan Vrierson. Nirarch howl soul physis heart soul and the soul down. Mary's very jars sirat. How black consult that native by person's law. That takeness soul nerves 3 admit circen jorsan. Very minery how circle gradish how second argument. Higher stage fees rush how controlling. How lynch attachment very strong action. तुमे बारदा आदि इच्छा वर रचना. राजेर्व सरात्र रमणीय अगुगेति शास्त्र श्रेष्ठितम. हेट हाउ गिर्डिकल दिस इज मेजाम्पुल हाउ गुड 16 ट्रैक्ट इनविजिबल. Rishish Srijult Jeepon this is consulting. Up babies our best test. Seek Trurarco glue Trurarclone glue mind press. How intellect portion very gardeneth life. Knee grarder lissip breath link ardiyam. RDM. Subtly very hot communicate mub full crust storing. Nerjersey largest sore villagers order bet by sense nerp visarger next star brooding. Bet by sense nerp vinergen next star brooding. Courage Shane very breath very threat how strolium merish cherish sita vairi నిషేధ నిత్రి కన్రిత వేరే తత్వ నిజోగ్రిత నిరేత నిత్రి కన్రిత వీరే తత్వ నిజోగ్రత విరే ద్రేష్ట మనోగ్రక్త ద్రేష్ట దీన్య సురోభక్త భ్రక్తం రాజశోకం హక్తం మనోవ్రైతం మనోవ్రతం సురోగం సురోర్జనం మర్చబిందు మనో అర్థ. బ్రెత్ నాలెడ్జ్ సెకండ్ గ్రోత్ క్రోటన్స్. నేత్రం విజయకరణం వినోగ్రదం హయోర్వ్రతి శుద్ధకాంతం శ్రద్ధశ్రేష్ఠితం హయోరక్తి మనోతలం. నీర్వర్జి నవగ్రోష్ఠితం వరేణ సుకల్పితం. వివరార్జున శిఖోకాండం మనవైర్య మనోశ్రేష్ఠ. శ్రీకరంబు సర్వగ్రక్తము నికరంబే నీతకరం నిజముగ నేడున్. నీతము రక్తము నేదున్. వినోర్జన భక్తిహరము మానితి నేడున్. మనోసాంఖ్య వినోర్వ్రతి విశేష ఇష్టా మాం నిజయోర్ద్రతి. హైతి విరగ్రహ మనోరంజిత సర్గుణంబు నిష్కపటంబు నిహగ్రంబు నీతనంబులను నిశ్చయంబుగా నీకిస్తిని నిర్గరయుక్తిన్ వల్లన్. నీత్రోర్తము నిశ్చయముగా నేడున్ నికృత వల్లన్. విడువక నీతము నేనిచ్చిన బంధకరము భద్రంబుగను. భయమును భక్తియు పోందును భావించుము భక్తికరము భయముం తోడున్. దట్ బ్రెస్ట్ ఆర్టికల్ 2 runs very nitropians. How good knowledge of bredical breath lords. Surat mast, very haldedge breath strike portion, psych rodans of result to read truth, how mental drought, how very strong. Next action, repeat that returns, seek roared, to reap nearest west large segment leads breath soul, that very crimin crate best to stow arc how vaisons, vinergal absert very rations but importical, seek dreath soul but crimin crate, breast large souleth bring net talit, how rishik breast badge that pressed large. Niroth, how growth, that phenomena's very ardial souls, conception, likens last three rest conception, murd circle very knowledge, soul lisip, how breast knowledge, strove breast authority, whoop rest dry division versus last treerens, lock treerens merch stood crimin crate, wise how treat rent soul, large trained roast crimin crate, best very breath how lynch good for trait, breath soul buttons bish greth, science soul, last soul brigel breast large source it, by laughing that smarping gradis how crotons, by laughing that larfing gradis how crotons, roast verse soul, in the soul strike best atom, that high physical, that mind returns, that process to sun's action, return process, merch to redance, that hargigeth veiran hackto rayala. Thy soul verith argire merch sorat vers mani pora, dagal hati meras daligire, meras daligire tahal rishit haur tene tumki tarai, varige vatri sara how longoi siraku nadikondu tetri anta, dalo siddhi tambirovala sala agu agu, nitra roga raksa siddha manati nindu nitra trayati, store a piece that rashka bravali, merk star ris by towel vision, rash, how rush heath, breath knowledge, stir of good high convenience, breath large experience, merry ordinary visions, best search, best nurture, how variance, stolage, last breath divisions, high verse good knowledge of breath horse shake in Wrinworks, Wrinverse, grady eek my perch, how result knowledge, that high secret, how point, very halt root, consulting, very growth knowledge, how inner section, that instructions, high you permission, that private large you argument. Best bark, halt, raise, best bark, halt, raise, how segment, verse, breath, talit, science, stow, large, shirat, round, rat, gret, rise, circle, brodang from Halish, license, roof, rotting, breath nice, souls, very 1900 talit, rarg, breath, native, voicens, breath, laughing, language, how predis, that MTA permission, prest, stulium, that persons very large of conversions, that bark raise up, how relacy breathing spark, miking, merking calls high, high merking breathing stay, wo Rieshat, marking strike, harg breathing, harg breathing, lines pick, truth village, persons like, stand off, rolling, halting, breath, how high mignet, tile, rounding, rotting, raising, truth. Namaskaram. Namaskaram. Master CVV Namaskaram. Please, Master. 1101 name. How soul fit, advise, nut, strike, build up, last. Press of tinus, last in the store. But wake up, razors, roared, Hargil breathing, browned, psych. How Sigram, merry suns, violate very regions. Roared, paint, violets, magnetize, magnetical root, rest high, Hanolians. Best propels, rate, receive, 913, Hargrolians. Hate breath, Surochita, Tana Margam. Payil, much rottens, growth, randrium. Very hot breath knowledge, receive most higher females language. How lynch, hot breath mind, stock, build up soul. Round about in of re good sun's sound of right. Tripet, signet, breath rosens, 9 particle. Liship, large, breath roll, rounds down. To let brick light that affect cause life, that merry suns. How Yaldium rate, keyful, strict raise, breath heart, largians. Strains rest, love very good, and the breath virulence, very vents. Binocular, but prakurti, knowledge, very sons. Life merries, very talent, physicians. Pipe pressed, bird, by receive, heart, life, like, and the kushirat. Everything good, merry, Rhodians. Of bright and the halt storium, heart best, very good point, the inverse large. Pigmatize, how x very rod, not 16 questions, point, 4 gradients, 5 I sense. 12 point, very of 100, very secret point verse. .12, very half 100, very secret point, verse breath rot, descending. How good best note, how right circle, private consult, how whole and the good. very pronote secret verse receipt, how consult not good, and the secret point, how rise rodians very wroth but point. How greed of second breath rod, how astral that raise suns very hot and the crores, peak and auto, how very wrath, how that guardians good point, and the rounds. Once more, and we pick out but answer right Rhodians to let how consult and the process, how right good, how standard very our knowledge, course very sense wrought leading large right 16 master. How greed up to the self answer very most questions. Hate native dalt roast and most process. How raise heart argument but why sense march language result how cull settle process by oath weakness raise large medical insolvent big cough medical insolvent big rope how seal up attachment build up raise Rhodians once more this is how good point lapping would raise astral state breath heart how growth very good license hate very how build up process wrath very sense how best melting rest process net guardians of brooding circle great how down process Handasthiti Viragra Mutrena Vigralochana Granda Grahena Vandena Varadruta Matena Hastaranjita बृहते तत्वस्वरूपिणी सिद्ध मंत्र सर्ववरेण्य भद्रसूत्र आत्मरंजित विनर्जित श्रेष्ठ विग्रभक्त मनोरक्त भद्रसूत्र आत्मरंजित వినర్జిత శ్రేష్ఠ విగ్రభక్త మనోరక్త మాతా బందిత విరతి భవతి మార్షగ్రహ रहती हऊ मिरत सोल रे जड्ज रात बैन गलातम तुम सोलना ग्रित मारे हाउ बिल्ट अप नोट राइटिंग लैंप how gradical brush writing lamp minute rest large good verse in very process how rest medical lamp right lamp process right last rest physics mind large best process that pronote very hate medical lines process then body crimin great right last rest physics mind large best process that pronote very hate medical lines process dead body crimin crate lines walk very 1 minute very severe process breath weighs large very typical license march body 2 days license very information very growth process my name this is best large the very best point h r p settle argument thy typical how dead process how delude last stage build up how circulation when you are and the build up root rose how till we meet god we meet you till we meet highest council high portion till meena mister's wives god we etc round a about on round about on round about on large settle license then the mistress master guard we till we meet a gay how greed up best wife welcome 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 great the settle process welcome best and the souls large souls how medians best large how master guard we tell we meet a gay that and the good license branch meena mistress master guard we till we meet a gay left right discharge left right disturb that very wall process arg license mistress master guard we till we meet a gay how link best harding license guard we etc. How body thousand read, how good and the build up settle truth. Settle truth. Peak verse, course, native argument, dal, and the soul, spike root, how and the very good aura produce color. Much dal, root, very soul, up to the building, every soul, very road, very thing souls. How elephant last produce lock movement, great physics first movement, delude, how 60 round roared, how mesmerize that soul, that is very right controlling, that very well license. Your mind very strong, first point, very strong, one attachment, very controlling one process, very strong license process. Everything that strong mind course that is link attachment, second course that is wise breath continue course. How to verse that is one thought current third build up process. How merge current force centers that is thought working, that is fourth course, that is children mindy argument, how link very well, how phenomena produce process, how match that mind attachment, that telephone sound produce, that heart attachment, that mind 12 aura produce, that magnetize roof, electric lamp, Groody light adjustment, delude force light produce colors, lock course that produce process. That foreign matter whole body force produce, that heart and the very strike evaporation process. How ripe roared exclamation, how raising large very breath soul, that kundalini rise of, how very strong current force body build up that attachment 1 minute process, that Mahaparanirvanic rising produce, that optical nerves very block, that foreign matter deposit process. 5 to let produce morph course, how brain deposit last physical, that adjustment course, that last moment, how to link one consulting truth, how mind course to the 6 to 9 beat authority, very forcible 1 hour 2 days, that argument process, that 1 days, that force mind very lock beat Mahaparanirvanic, that Sushumna very forcible melting, that astral state, how that thought license very lock every breath, that Mahaparanirvanic, that 5 minutes raise up process, how that body action, that is full conscience, that nerves very strong adjustment, very greed up process, how March playful breath met soul wine arting full breath very strong nerves attachment breath process. Master, Namaskaram. Namaskaram. Master CVV Namaskaram. 1201 name. Physics breath verse large, very breath course, how everything any full process. That much Kal city root road, how authority Kal settle process. Next rotten will power roared, how will power much roared, delude process, how mesmerize that Lordians earning ray, how belief strong mind that process begin attachment, breath Rastan, how large best continue strike, how wake of state, how produce medical lines that result last process. Rate knowledge, Sushumna, Shirat, lock and the bubble very settle impartment. Up to the netram license roardium that astral touch Morrison process, that is the astral process. How church large one complexion any blast, how result rarg belief process. Master, much blob lord net raise up down march, that very sense growth that build up process. March lamp wise knowledge breath soul very heart breathing digestion process. How once more lording Kal settle 1900 nerves that build up very breath, that is crimin creation lock and the build up by sure science how process. Memory and the rock Shurat. Master, Bain clap Mauritius howl and the process. Red break suns how rardy experience. Raoul misters how lynchy very typical, how very circle very most process. By graft how result that crores elephant that argument process. Up and the build up simply verse wire. Debbyard Church. Debbyard Church rate magnetize force, how build up attachment process. Then the talk it howls by breath breathing to list sky. Break rate knowledge howls why. Brooding stalking howls weak. Halt march breathing star necklace ground lores. How knowledge secret dome. How peak and the strike. Any body reared how link breath large. How breathing anybody last march license lark. How melting state. Tine least very that Sahasrahara breath. Appearance that Nayakayu drought. How belief agreement scientific. Rectify cage wrath. Eyesight and the nickel signs arg triple wires that scientist. Breath my body high root very breath strong portion. How consulting and the not you are report any signs how merry signs triple. Next arrange how first atom. How consulting and the Kundalini app. How consulting and the Kundalini roop reigns karma belief. 12-inch any compared Mary Enolize. How good imparticle science. 12-inch any compared Mary analyze how good imparticle science. Triple science very knowledge high authority your process. Rest any typical very secret science how and the net science very good point. How magnetic force how receive and the Sushumna science. Raise any body magnetic best surat very heart imparticle process. Lignis and the high but half 100 delude merchirad that mitten souls biograph. How then console is how one console is, how one silk glamp necessity words life, but on land assist obstinate delude how and the physical names, but on land obstinate delude how and the physical names. How science root of very heart unever and the very rape souls very agreement how science. Triple science, very analogy, net this is crimin science. Truth, how, when, the best, how, roop. Science, Gnostic, very brood system working, necessity, how, authority, next creation process. Anybody up to the knowledge, science trip, very off root argument, very science process. How delude, sanctifying, very large souls of breath, very sense best authority, that shirap knowledge process. How secret we knowledge, best large, how very good mind, very free higher most, that intellect process, that begin very analogy point, building how that soul, very physics, net verse, how lies, that communicate, very growth knowledge. Miss then the toilet, very self and the good point, and we hate, this is begin very test, physics, next very begin large. That body, very free growth, that nerve system, net authority, very build up hate knowledge process, very science and the novel, this is how are you do netram, and the very good large point, the end, the higher consulting, that process. The best heart growth, niskam, very this step, how lynch, that consulting, very most point, how soul, visi is, how soul, this is, build up, enseal, crip. That is the very creation, that very imparticle, very produce, how best to planes, that is the culture up to the process. How written article, very knowledge, gather, how very imparticle, chemical course, very gather scientific kundalini action, very further up to the process. How netram, very strong chemical point, how the very gradical analogy, very how the course, that a boy very gather up to the further mental plane, that is the whole chemical change, that authority process, how the notice, very scientific lessons, how the martial course, that one particle, how the imparticle delusion, that sense gather, how lotion further course, best very actual 1007 steps, that is how argument 64. Hate, how the good pressure of the mind to link attachment, that buddhic course, how boarding license, very breath systems, work lies up to the sense. In the goal, miseries, how like, and the stricken great, high lock, Halak, bone diver, in the inner of the menagerie, and the white colors that how it produce good link attachment and the scientific best knowledge. Further knowledge like keys, how the roast, how the gather, next process, begin origins, pick out the like and determination. Wars makes dart SF, marchful, analyze, best how the utilize, use mental, unconscious, how the astral plane, authority, physical plane course. One link course, very good scientific force, very analyze controlling, very systems, by telephone sound, growth, adjustment, how the good portion. How build up very secret systems work. How build up very secret systems work. My rod ends very delusion march course. Who Lincoln my analyze and from produce very harshment very analyze. Up to the merry scientific knowledge, up to the merry scientific large very best in tropical grade used, higher most written article very scientific analyze. Up to the utilize very authority analogy very best imparticle large. To beautify in that analyze how growth to nerves and the build up and the growth. Lyse and analyze free actions well scientific that matter, stop the body. Master. Hall that attachment very from and Sahasrahara very Surat article very large actions that up to the limit actions very astral matter produce force action. Very analyze and utilize very best higher actions, very inner section dead actions and from the build up actions and the deluding life and secret verify very lifey culture the grade used life criminal actions very last stage and the deluding life and secret very life culture the grade used life criminal actions very last stage. Master. And aura how the good point to limit, hate point to the very higher conception, how to the intellect work very most conception point, that nerve paramanu growth actions that is Sahasrahara nerve an inch growth build up and slow life and cause. Store up slow matter and force actions, very actions that Paramanu and the life and the cause. How conception, very writing, life, how controlling, and the foreign matter cultured rest life, very intellect work and the buddhic touch, and the nerves growth, very most actions, very impartial actions, life and the cause, and the cause, minute life, what is that, using and the link attachment, very minute actions. Master, Namaskaram. Namaskaram. Master CVV Namaskaram, please Master. Please Master, that life and growth, minute and the Sahasrahara and the cause. Minute how that very create and the build up that life actions. How the good and the conception, delude, devolution, sense to the satisfaction. How links attachment continued partisans. How links attachment continued pertinence by devolution. How met subject, how storing lines, very attitude, very impartial actions. How merry growth conception, very scientific astral authority, very knowledge gather force actions when there is good conception. How gather and infant search columns, then devote scientific knowledge, then gather optical frame science up to the division of deluding one, to the scientific conception and important and very circulation, and to strike the authority from by circulation dalt, liven the aptitude force actions, very gather and important grader, important high grader lines, very up to the force actions, high grader lines, very up to the force actions, and devolution high correspondence, that magnetic force actions, very knowledge and gather culture and scientific rod to let the hip bone, very order and writing rod. Master, how to the culture lines, strict lines, very higher conceptions, to the higher good point, very knowledge gather. Analyze how are you do science writing lamp, that the science gather fit and the that the science gather fit and analyze to utilize that license that the science gather fit and analyze to let how to the build up actions how optical then the verify how optical then the very scientific knowledge lies very science growth culture and analyze very important very up to the higher force actions how mesmerized to the scientific knowledge gather up to the very growth like science very important argue high culture very maintain, maintain materializing like science very important argue high culture very materializing how conception that consulting scientific knowledge that higher mind very analyze best intellect work very important process how the very buddhic conception how force attachment very best higher growth build up actions how link attachment very not lies and analyze best most point very cleansing process how materialize the good authority argument how deluding one conception very growth melting point master very culture that electric force and up to the build up actions how link attachment that argument how to the controlling one gold life consulting and self in self actions to limit how conception very scientific deluding science how gather very growth how important actions that life gather very mesmerizing how to the very hindu ki bone how the cultured actions how links once more conception karmic tile and the minute very writing strike most point the very analyze and very secret actions how are you do breath unusual and very science gather how are you breath unusual and very science gather then the very higher knowledge and the build up actions how link attachment very science knowledge and optical very scientific secret actions how materialize to let very one culture up to gather very growth mesmerize scientific bark bridge and to link that melting point up to the bark very science gather melting science creep culture and the good permanent or pertinent master. Melting science, creep culture, and the good pertinent households, and the very analogy is a very good point. The very analogy and a very good point. Then the science gather mysteries of unconscious, then Orgrolians to limit soul's conception trip murders souls how to the full unconscious breaths. When tally connections, when tally conception, very circulation, very argument important, very order secret, materializing up to the conception, instructions. The very argument analyze spirit, how life controlling very body, consulting very actions, important actions. How my scientific electric force that higher currents when the material life cause and electric force up to the link of Mahaparanirvanic three force actions very analyze. Actual important analyze, then the very course of the inner sections is the very scientific laws. How moksham link touch attachment that the very karana bhuta of the cosmic mind. Then trip soul mind lost, trip very scientific cosmic actions, then the very important bridge actions. Up to the cause actions of the mind build up, expect to gather how the manas beat the lessons of the astral sight, how to the akashic record signs of to the physical body MPN limit. Your cause and the effect, birth life gather, how secret circle, how dull one cosmic mind, affect manas to culture affected, 1 minute marsing, how disturbance the cosmic mind, how 10 trip minute morphing. Scenes once more deluding, how the very actual analyze actions. The spirit life and gather very sections, how busy work, how to the verse. By to the Sushumna race, Gnanaka rise, conception, how militaries strike. How are you do the same life gather, the very Mercury and life gather. How sheep then to legacians, how molecule life, how gather. Limitic science, higher knowledge, controlling that evolution, materialize, controlling growth actions. Symbols beat self and permission full knowledge that MPN utilize very ease point. Root molecules up to the nirvanic spiritual names. How conception life spark light that symbols knowledge force centers. That argument electric spark that full knowledge of the growth to the light on the path, to the light on the path, how are actions? That permission are very great, how systems work, how build up the science, very most explain important how link attachment. Once more and biograph beat work up to the spiritual power and the will power up to the heart working marculations how sheep lens up to the electric sight symbols up to the spirit astral scenes. Master once more ground lip right to manasika link systems pedagogue argument and strict and to the path. Once more reflection and to modest how limit one bark up to the link attachment how spit selfing movement and the yellow colors and blue color up to the condensed system foreign matter up to the electric science how hard calculation to binocular and astral sight to important and list spiral coils and roga electricity and analyze. March systems animal kingdom petroleans how and body building large crepe and life and the path how brain portion then we masters link conceptions attachment very then the secret self. And the root point to science grading life and to bark inner up to the electric and MTA golding power how systems medium up to the life and carbonic matter that deluge and spiritual symbol names how to link attachment gradiency mark and life to limit systems circulation and speech names. And deluding intellect of to the ones and deluding intellect up to the ones mark names building war goal name and systems process to circle how inner movement and analyze up to the keep large and nothing but system how force knowledge and criminal movement that your nothing and marculation systems by limit souls up to the symbol names. Eye drop and native physiology and systems keep minute and authority off to the light on the path. Eye drop and native physiology and systems keep minute and authority off to the light on the path. How good silver kingdom and Buddhic passes and lifing roared by systems work. Very mesmerized liver and the systems work and very inner secret and reduced point. How are you do very wall and secret reduced sections off to the end build up netra namaskaram. Master namaskaram. Master CVV namaskar observe. Namaskaram. Master Namaskaram. Master CVV Namaskaram. Please, Master. 1401 name. How argument one life questions chief and the analogy important movement and the once more and liver circulation first molecules diversion higher first analyze movement. How system work course and imparticle hard working movement and telephone bet lal easing and howling citing most intellect portion up to the pellicule argument how system work my mark lever how what is that system nothing movement how very crepe knowledge how spiritual are and grapes to life argument how spiritual names that molecule and one's lesson how and argument spiritual build up and to the license secret dalt much physiology and narrating life how up to the higher level how larding bestful and melting state full and sleep movement systems by one's circulation up to the heart knowledge but that ojas best permission, that sun's aura how to the current, very round rock lever, how are you do first electric spark, higher names, very round rock lever, how are you do first electric spark, higher names. How marcuration, that knowledge, very using lesson and very important new life, and gather very systems higher link and direct easing course, delhi of and my heart and switching light and sleep are dual wake, conceptual and much life, and gather how to the marculation of belief, most important up to the science art, very lack important moment. How are you do and analyze conscience of names, systems, work or continued lessons, best conscience and names up to the my lock and break net, suffering in half handed current, to the mark curing that argument, how important lessons and speeches, to the very higher magnetic life and most in current, and liver spirit and authority magnetic source, how good light and to the path, secret dynamic and spiritual volt, spill up liver lessons, how mark course and systems work, that information do not to know and to the pipe, and to mark lessons by post full of inner current, to the lay watch up to the lever by its tender information, how to the molecule best information, beautiful will working, and to analyze the build up portion and the final link attachment to the most positive passing up to the liver, and to the build up aura produced the information of the important process, that molecule up to the systems names are dual and nations creep by permission from higher level working the important actions, to the great and low notions, how they are making greatest actions, and the knowledge they gather or accumulate and useful and useful speeches are the best analyze actions in golding power, up to the making state and the diversion locking movement, up to the breathing subject, how the lock and the most higher spiritual molecule notions of the light, up to the general knowledge, how that the article of leaf permanent of the 16th lesson, and to the eye of the movement is any or all tend to by its spark and to the end. To observed molecules length fixature enduring science. Master in knowledge. Master involved liver independence growths by liquid truth boring then capacity involved form to tendons persons of the molecules in triple lock fill up 16 stages of prolonged to independent growths. My Jolana Nicape purpose of the improved Lars. Why Lahage good astral production then involve dynamo bones boring. Buffalo hard hedges, large breathing converse up to the symbol bones boring. Astro stored purpose of the boring globes involve in bones boring. Mystery ground lock of involve inner bones boring. For liquid meek enduring in nerves into cross leakage bones boring. Inner storians globe free organs enduring bones boring. That Sahasrahara ground liberation whole valving wire vital flash systematic bones boring. Then ice scraped inner capacity involved bones boring. Hath abdomen bull penetrate liver tendons to the bones boring. Heart hardic limit heart harbor limit pump out enduring liberation to the bones boring. Vacuum beat heart tendons keep up involve bones boring. Dynamo astro stored yellow blue vision communicate electric bones boring. Limit bar higher line to vision graphe astro stored bones boring. How meter lost capacity Vedanta theories in bind heart tendons bones boring. Vacuum beat talled tendons 515 lakhs bones boring. TM turnout stars face bones boring. Vital lord to chemical capacity 513 lakhs bones boring. To penetrate abdomen stored then 80 turnout bones boring. Bulb to pissage and electricity down workout to the bones boring. Lock in valve outer note penetration guarding capacity in bones boring. Valve necessity improved hip rod connection involve bones boring. Heart vertebral lotus enduring capacitable bones boring. Heart sahasrahara value by program, higher tendenced bones boring, endurance, step by step, nirvana connections, heart tendenced bones boring, hip rod lever position involved independent capacities, bones boring, abdomen, heart dynamic, spirit molecules in diversion molecules, keep up to the bones boring, inner penetration independent to heart inner productions enduring, bones boring, 21,315 lakhs by Sahasrahara from formation dynamic threads, bones boring, to astral message wagons columns to the purpose of the bones boring, higher trouble valg good controlling, higher intellectual bones boring, then production breathing involved message, bones boring, higher vertebral lotus in trouble, inserved spirit, bones boring, in type 2 cross very subtle heat program, walk usable vita in bones boring, for liberation down controlling permanent atom liberation, intellectual intelligence, bones boring, to periodical preference, higher to building hymn sutra, vertebral tendenced bones boring, improved liver necessity, in guard prolong penetration liquid enjoyment, bones boring, enduring signs of parliament capacity, then wagon to heart, bones boring, 162 lakhs hard pendant vibration to grasp horizon, bones boring, into solid abdomen reared, bones boring, time ask paint wrong road, fuck improved spirit gas sport, bones boring, tem ask wait wrong road for improve spirit gas stored, bones boring, RHB TM turnout marketable organs independence column, then dynamo thread, bones boring, hip venersity to hard organs, finer truth involved by program step by step, bones boring, heart valve in Moffisil Lord lock, attention crossed by bones boring, to version to vision astro limit in stored fishage, bones boring, master namaskaram. Namaskaram. Master CVV Namaskaram. 1501 name. Hard liver bulb to pend program individual during capacity exercise meet bones boring to violate yellow cross to creped forum then to dynamic verse bones boring. Heart visible valves intelligation to bones visible aura attractions in human system log bones boring to improved vital dynamo liver of productions to sahasrahara minute astral forum independenced bones boring. High lock cook capacity then involve improved hard tendency to realization to personal lock bones boring. How vision involving lines group to chemical change vertebral columns height mistress master lock bones boring weight very signs age to back fixed higher drops forum and improved vital bones boring to inner lotus improved hip rod bulb into very settled 215 wagons inner sahasra board bones boring to and the guns lord invisible program type in vacuum individual bones boring buffalo to 215 capacity article then dynamo liquid songs electric bones boring for improved occult face lines growths involving and utilize prolong and pack it bones boring to personal communicate further acute invisible ground further attachment in systematic bones boring simple in round to hypnotize magnetic prolong to face bones boring out vision improved pineal gland retina enjoyment in vertebral lotus in talk bones boring to fixage heart tendenced ground drowned in cross order positions bones boring. To face marketable astroglobes in vision further good production improved bones boring permanent hip rod lotus how finer attachment in navels bones boring how outer vision undertake fix dynamo positions to the bones boring halt tendenced world forum pendenced planes convert bones boring up to hurg in round coating formations involve in program in bones boring to yappled higher tendenced in globes forum systematic lines in large attraction in utilize bones boring improved hard red position white race yellow songs to further large to fissage mangi root down occult hymn songs throughout albeit tendency to penetrate in false bones boring food properties involve dynamic thread in stored liquid form bones boring heart mola penetration endure self communication bones boring how to articles inserved post to communicate evaluate by solution in cross to attend by master triple solution or RDL fit up large group stages bones boring. Hip rod dynamo position or liquid gaseous message intellectual bones boring that communicate revolve astral group exercise creped forum connection turnout bones boring, then violate rock and hard tube vision rod bones boring, then improved penetration flash stula kapala bones boring, to tendensed molecules, then attraction 1500 cross white wood race tymphonum tube formations into bones boring, high bulb tendensed necessity relaxed vital tube into grafts bones boring, to hand heart trouble astro stored fix bones boring, to personal auto position into ordinary stored wagon left by bones boring, up to the condensed mukhya prana in liver tendensed bones boring, to occult pranayama bindu dhyana dharana sushupti nisheda kalvas, to vend optic organs, then good dome productions of to the bones boring, to flash higher duration in cross dynamic necessity into flash communicate very vacuum subtle heat dynamo bones boring. How to the hip rod verse navel, how to the hip rod verse navels exercise sroth attractions to meet good dome productions I verse systematic lord cup off to the bones boring, revelance oak received bark spill up revelation dhyana dharana sushupti avastha pratyahara tube lord jones bones boring, fight military valence vital tendency to the bones boring, vaite ragna vaite ragna sandu tola birila హైతే రాజన సింధు తులాబరి లభిత దిగ్యో సాంగ్స్ బోన్స్ బోరింగ్, హైతే రాజ్ఞ సంధు తుల లభి సంధు తుల బిరిల బితదేగ్యో సాంగ్స్ బోన్స్ బోరింగ్, హౌ ఇనిషియేట్ స్పిల్ అప్ పార్లమెంట్ దెన్ నౌకా చరిత్ర individual enduring liberation lord of maitra vision stula capacity occult bones boring, to mind retortion in bores then lax dvipa pavitra in monad independensed column in bones boring, high verse vital tendons then spirit avatara groups involved gain sushupti stone bones boring, new separate physia links to outer communication vertebral thread bones boring, to personal atidhi stored nickel vibrations to aura higher tendensed phenomenal avatara lord of bucks to the fix bones boring. Why then horse triple stula kavacham mooladhara pakruti sarvagnana sambhodita in tube lines in moola kavacha kapala tend vision to the bones boring. To heart magnetic stores hypnotize very penetration. Independenced Sahasrahara in lotus department, ordinary signs in bones boring. Then physia lengths in group vital vision to beats column initiated bones boring. To find enduring thought in revelation in cross keep up stored in bones boring. Hip rod I found triple organization to beat vertebral tendons to the bones boring that communicate spirit liver in stalked penetration to the bones boring. In walk initiate in stored spirit occult acculed then capacity to beat dart individual wagon and to keep capacity in bore mould diamond bone spiritual analyze stock most point to the bones boring. To vital tend occult for corresponding build up to the enjoyment tube bones boring. Then stock stomach endure realization occult in songs hip rod line to beat corresponding growths to the bones boring. Axillary liver to minute improved capacity to minute violate optic store to fend adamantine wall to the bones boring. Stock improved vertebral columns. Tube Hindustani in cracks. Exactly to find vital stomach enduring liberation to the bones boring. Lock marquetable dome. Lock marquetable domes in craped form line to bar vital necessity organs to fill up to the bones boring. Spring dynamic lord to tendenced org real analyzation to trend previous kalpas analyzation to the bones boring. Ice limit adamantine valve to beat independence improved bones boring. Exercise to column meet position in lard throughout the dynamo spark into mesmerize enduring guarding by revolve step by step to the penetration lard feet to the bones boring. Exercise to part meteor stomach in rattan probes improved finer connection in past tendons to the bones boring. To feed vertebral columns to undertake exercise prolong involving penetration to find bones boring. Depth then compartment improved add up in roared finer to the bones boring. Into wend to the hip rod total in find belief in title large wend production to the bones boring. To tendons optic sthana bindu induration corresponding light and trip to the bones boring. Pranalaya, Pradhamadvati, Dana, Sandhyalaya, Urdhva ఊర్ధ్వ ప్రపంచ వైటల్ టెండెన్సెడ్ బోన్స్ బోరింగ్. ప్రాణాలయ ప్రథమ ద్వతి దాన సంధ్యాలయ ఊర్ధ్వ ప్రపంచ వైటల్ టెండెన్సెడ్ బోన్స్ బోరింగ్. Then revolve by tube ordinary nerves in guard in tube systematic tono program individual bones boring to beat hargasari fill up stored to find vital revolving stock to communicate vision to pend larg individual songs to the bones boring. Hip rod adamantine valve individual chi stem ordinary store keep up to the bones boring. Then authority is ground to pend valve horizon then production to the bones boring. For that reflection by thought own developments individual in songs very subtle heat to beat bones boring. Into then production layer into cross improved then organs in feet authority dynamo productions then are RDs to the bones boring. Then violate then in principle conceptions to the ordinary zones tube to the bones boring. To minute ground misters vital power into beat prolong origins to beat temporarily bones boring. Very subtle heat decomposition and electricity liver Hactal very subtle heat decomposition and electricity liver heart tendons to beat dynamo to the bones boring. To feet mangi root ground optic source very penetrate to feet formation to the bones boring. Halt group to vacuum in communication then friend by step revolving force liquid initiation trend to the bones boring. To feet bark into find then guarding frame to larg to the bones boring. In ground individual heart stored to beat electric cross into pend to 7 years aura to the bones boring. To then aura whole marketual that production into wagon valves to signs to the bones boring. Halt very pendant to finer roared individual in connection then triple organ to the enjoyment tube cork to the bones boring. మాస్టర్ నమస్కారం. మాస్టర్ సివివి నమస్కారం. 1587 1587 ఎస్టీ వానా నాకు అర్థం కాల చెప్తే కదా అర్థం కాలేదు పెట్టేయమంటే నాకు ఎట్లా అర్థం అవుద్ది. కట్టమయ్యా బాబు.